Welcome to the Young, Dumb, and in Love podcast, where we talk about all things marriage.
Our goal is to help equip you to have a marriage that is better than you have ever imagined by sharing real-life experiences, getting into the nitty-gritty, and sharing practical ways you can start today. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of Young, Dumb, and in Love.
Another episode of Young, Dumb,
I'm having
and
a wardrobe
in
malfunction.
Love. Do you need my help? I can help you if you need
Just
me
like
to.
shaky?
Yeah, too much coffee today again? Yeah, it's a problem. We'll work on it, though. We're going to continue this journey with each other on our coffee intake.
You're way better than me.
It's okay. I'm not better than you. I mean,
when it comes to drinking coffee.
Oh,
not
yeah,
drinking coffee.
Yeah, I don't need that much coffee like you do. Now, when I
don't need it. I just do
when
it.
I need coffee, though, I need it desperately.
I don't know.
But last week was an incredible episode with Todd and Susie Holman. And I think it was so inspiring and so cool that we're going to want to kind of continue that conversation a little bit, because in just helping your spouse follow their dreams and to be their biggest support, to show up for them. And I think there was something that we said, to believe in them. Like, that's one of those things that if we can learn just to simply believe in our spouse, that's going to make all the difference in the world for the future, for your relationship. Believing in your spouse goes way further than you can ever imagine. And that was one of my biggest takeaways from last week's episode, was just believing in your spouse, looking at them and being their biggest fan, no matter how crazy it might seem what they want to do. Believing them just is such a big deal. So. Yeah.
Well, you know, like when you have a dream or like an idea, you know?
Oh, all the time.
And I think it's cute. Like, what has your like theme always been? From like
day one.
Yeah. Since I've known you, which has been,
it's always been
19 years.
Yep. It's always been dream big.
Dream big.
Yep.
Always. You're like, dream big, dream big.
Dream big.
And
dream
so
big.
that's just your mantra.
Yep.
Is that the word? Yeah. And so, you know, when you have a big dream though, and you are kind of nervous about it, or you're like, ooh, I don't know, everyone's going to think I'm crazy.
Yes.
And then you go to your spouse. If they react like, no, you can't do that, like, you're probably not going to do it, right? Like, are you most likely you're going to be crushed?
Yeah, it's going to crush your dreams for sure. 100%, because they're the one person. It's almost like your safe zone, right? Yeah. You're going to go to your safe zone, and then your safe, and if your safe zone, most likely, shuts down your idea, and you're like, oh, well, okay, I thought I had a great idea, but I guess that dream's got to die.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we've done a very good job at believing in each other's dreams. Now, that doesn't mean that it hasn't been hard or challenging. I think there's a lot of things that we've gone through together, and we've learned from our big dreams and our thoughts and what we want to do. But unfortunately, like we are very guilty of allowing circumstances and people in our lives to stop us from following our dreams. Yeah.
Like us 100%. Being guilty? Yeah. Well, and I think just in general, like, one, you know, if your spouse doesn't encourage or believe in your dreams, doesn't mean that right off the bat they need to be like, you know, funding them and giving you tens of thousands of dollars and saying, yeah, just go ahead, go do it. But it's like, when you bring them something, you want them to be like, okay, cool, let's unpack that more. Like, tell me more about it.
For sure.
Instead of like, you can't do that. You know what I mean? And so, but I think we've done a decent job. I think we've done a really good job.
Oh, absolutely.
Encouraging each other. But yes, I would agree that we've allowed outside voices to stop us from following our dreams, which then in a way has delayed it in delayed, a way, right? Like, delayed. Not that it's not going to happen, but now we've allowed
it to
the
delay.
Voices of others.
Yeah, if leaders in our lives, people in our lives, we've allowed their voices to delay.
Yeah.
Now, there is something super important that we need to capture when it comes to that. Like, I think it is very good to have people in your life that you trust.
100%.
That can speak into you, that help bring truth, that will help you, guide you and direct you every single step of the way, right? But there's other leaders who enforce their ways on you without you even having a chance, right?
Yeah, we were just talking about this.
Yeah, we were just talking about this. And so, for instance, we had a great thing going once, and it was going really well. and we were working very hard, and it was growing, and we were like, okay, this is something. This is real.
My thing?
Huh?
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about your stuff.
Oh.
Yeah. So this actually, it's funny because this YouTube channel started off as that, and we've kind of revamped it to be what it is today. But Brittany was like killing the game, just growing, just doing stuff. And it was so funny because she was basically doing like Bible study for women and teaching and doing a lot of stuff like that online. And this is before like everyone was doing it. Like online, you were doing it, and not a lot of people were doing this already.
Gosh, dang it.
And she got shut down by leaders in her life. And it wasn't even like a question. It was just like, you can't do that, and you need to stop it today. And it was one of those situations that it kind of put us back many years because, it was part of my job. The leaders were oversights of my job. And like, there were so many different variables that had to do with it. And so as I look back, like now I know what I know, I look back and I think to myself, I would never allow that to happen.
That's a good point.
In
like
my life.
Not only being the encourager of your spouse's dreams, but making sure you're also protecting your spouse's dreams, because I think at the time, we were young. It was a long time ago. You're like, okay, like you want to trust leaders, right? You want to think like, man, because I remember thinking like, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. It like bred a lot of insecurity in me of like, oh, I must be doing something wrong if they think I'm wrong. But what we talked about a couple weeks ago is, and you'll probably remember this, is like we were sharing with I think a younger person who's, following their dreams. Like, you need to make sure that when people are speaking into your life, like they have your best interest at heart. Like not their best interest, not how what you're doing is going to serve them or serve their goal, but like what is like having your best interest in mind. Because I do think, like you said, it's fair. And, obviously this with your spouse, like it is fair to ask questions and to be like, okay, so have you thought about this? Like, but with their best interest in mind. Like when Julian brings me, like when you came to me and said, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to start my own business. Like, I think I'm going to start my own business.
I'm going to step out of what I've been doing for the last 15 years and start something brand new. I could have been
like, no, you're not doing that. But and I'm definitely the more reserved one, maybe the overthinker.
You're the smarter one. I'm the one who just throws stuff to the wind, and you're the one who goes,
smarter.
Let's think about this.
No, because it serves two different things. Like, you're very smart in your way, and I'm smart in my way, but I'm more of like, I am a more practical thinker. Yeah. And more of like, how much is this going to cost? What it's going to look like? What are the steps? Which also can be a hindrance. And you're more of the bigger dreamer, Dream and big. So as we have melded over time, now, you have more practicality, but you're still a big dreamer, and I dream a lot bigger, but I'm still practical, so it's like it's a balance too. But I could have been like, no, or, whatever. And I probably was at some points. I don't remember totally, but it was kind of like,
there was a point where you said, I think you probably should go get a job.
We've had that. Well, yeah, there's also common sense. Like, the bills keep coming, but, it's okay to have questions as long as that person's, if your heart is in the right spot. So like, if it's your spouse, of course, like if you have a question, or you have like, ooh, like you have a full-time job. Like, what does that look like? Like, be smart about following your dreams. Like, and obviously, when the heart is right and you're not like operating from fear, but like saying like, okay, so what does this look like financially? What does this look like as far as time? All of that stuff. That's all fair to ask. It's not like you just be like, yeah, let's go for it. And then all of a sudden you're like, I have questions. Right? Would you say that's 100%. Fair? Like,
yeah, it's totally fair.
Because there are a lot of like expenses that come with following your dreams a lot of times.
Oh, for sure.
I know. A lot of sacrifices, time sacrifices, family sacrifices in a lot of ways.
Yep.
So I think one, like when your spouse comes to you with a dream, like just to kind of, like don't smash it right away. Like never smash it right away. Never say no, or you couldn't do that. Cause like, you don't want to, like, if they have a dream, you want to encourage that dream, But it is also okay to say, okay, cool. Like, let's now sit down and think it through or talk about it, and what does it look like? Because a lot of times being a big dreamer and entrepreneur means that some things you do don't make sense.
For sure.
And I think that's the only way you can really be an entrepreneur is be like, this doesn't make sense, but I'm still going to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. 100%.
Or you just wouldn't do it. Because a lot of times what we do doesn't actually totally make sense, especially if you have like an old school like mentality of no, I'm just going to go to my 9-to-5 job. Not that that's old school. That's still okay. If you have a 9-to-5 job, don't get all mad. But like, a lot of like, parents or whatever, or leaders might be like, no, that's not how it works. There's no way you could make money and do that.
For sure.
I don't even know what that was. But.
No, that's so true though. Cause like at the end of the day, okay, so we call our podcast Young, Dumb, and in Love. When we were young, I mean, we got engaged at 19 and 17. We got married at...
Well, we got engaged at 18 and 20, but I had just turned 18 like a month.
Okay. I wasn't 17. I'll give that to you.
It was March 1st.
I wasn't 20, so...
You were 19.
I was 19.
I was 18.
Okay. So we got engaged at 19 and 18. And to be honest, we wanted to get married pretty fast. And so we were like, okay, how fast can we get married? 3 months, 4 months, 5 months? And it ended up being what, 6 months?
March to July, what is that, 7, 10? 4 months, 4.5 months.
4.5 months. We got married quick because we were young, we were dumb, but we were in love. And when you think about that though, now, like if I look back now, I'm like, you're an idiot, right?
How dare
like,
you?
You're crazy.
Like
if anybody comes to me, I'm gonna be like, okay, hold on, slow down, let's talk about this.
Not out of regret, but just out of like wisdom.
Out of wisdom, because if you don't have wisdom,
because we was dumb,
if you don't got wisdom, you is dumb. But I remember just people in our lives, people close to us who were calling me. And
haters were hating.
They were calling me and being like, this is dumb. Don't do it. We got divorced.
Everyone just thought I was pregnant. Like the only reason you're getting married is because Brittany's pregnant. But I wasn't.
And so many people in our lives just completely hating on the situation or making bets that we were pregnant or, we didn't have very many people believing in us. We had maybe 2 couples believing in us, really. And
one of them being your
parents.
So I don't know if you count
really
that.
like it was a hard time. But we had dreams, we had thoughts, we had, these things. And so good thing we were together. But when you have people coming and saying everything that's wrong, it's going to put your mind in a place that's going to be negative, right? And you're going to just be like, no. And if that's all you're hearing, that's all you're seeing, you're naturally going to gravitate towards, oh, maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe I'm making the wrong decision. Maybe I'm not doing that. And so with your spouse, when they come to you with a big dream, if you're going to bring the negativity and you're only going to speak, okay, that's not possible, and you are too much of a realist with them, you're going to put them in a place where they're going to doubt themselves. They're going to think, maybe this is crazy. Maybe this isn't for me. And really our job as a spouse is to look at, like, if Brittany has a big dream, I'm going to go behind her. I used to play baseball. So whenever a fly ball would come and it wasn't to me, it was to the guy next to me. I was in center field. So if they hit it to left field, I would run as fast as I can to back them up. And that's what I'm going to do, because if that ball gets past them, I want to be able to grab it and still make a play. And so that's what marriage is. I'm going to run behind Brittany in any opportunity that I have that she's trying to do something, and I'm going to be her support, because if the ball gets dropped, I'm going to pick it up and still make a play for our team, because we're on a team and we're going to do this together. And that's the kind of mentality that helps your big ideas, your big dreams be successful in marriage. And so when you can take that mentality on, I'm telling you, like, it makes all the difference in the world when it comes to your spouse and supporting them in all that they're doing. And so when they come to you, be positive. Obviously ask the right questions, but be positive, be a cheerleader, be somebody who can just look at them and go, all right, if you're going to do this, I'm going to do this with you. Let's pivot. Let's see what we can do to make this happen. It may not be your dream, right? It may not be my dream to do what you're doing, but it's our dream because it's your dream, so you have it. So I'm going to have it too. So I'm going to do my very best. And if you want to, there's a new Barbie museum starting here in Arizona. You want to start a Barbie museum? I can care less about Barbies. No,
but I want to go to the Barbie museum.
Let's start this thing. I'm going to give you everything that I have.
Yeah. Well, and I think we were talking about this earlier. We, as we were walking, which was a luxury this morning, we got to go on a walk.
Such a luxury.
as we were walking, we were talking about like, okay, so when you have a big dream and it's hard, right? Because you're like starting a business or chasing after something, you have to have like, it's important to have come together and cast vision for where you're going.
Yeah.
And to have the why. Like we didn't just start a business for, just for fun. Like it wasn't just for fun, but why did we do that? And I think when you have a vision, when you have a why, when you've really like come together, even if it's not a business we're starting together, it's still a together endeavor because it's us, everything needs to be us. It's like, okay, we started this business because, and having that at the forefront of your mind, like, because then on the days that it's really hard,
you want to quit,
like one of you is picking up way more slack because the other one is really like they're grinding, like they're in the thick of it because they're starting a business, which is a lot of work. You can recall the why, have that vision, and it will kind of bring you back to like the reality.
That's what I mean?
Good. And so, for example, like, okay, why did you start a business? Well, maybe you wanted time freedom. You wanted financial freedom. You wanted to be able to be with your family more. You wanted to build a legacy. You felt really called to a certain, ministry or a certain group of people or a certain, whatever that is.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And it's like, you need to make sure you're very, very clear when you start a new business or a new endeavor, new ministry, why you're doing it.
Yep.
Why are you doing this? Why are you feeling called to this?
Yeah.
Because then on the days where you want to quit or your spouse is like, this feels like a lot, you guys can come back to the why. Remember, this is temporary. We're building this. This is why we're doing it. Whatever that looks like.
Yeah. It's your foundation. It's what you build everything on, right? Yeah. And if you have a rocky foundation, it's going to fall. You build your foundation, or you build your house on sand, what's it going to do? It's going to fall.
Yep.
That's why it's so important to do those things. We were talking about it this morning too. Like we're about to get a big whiteboard because we got a lot of things going on. And so, and we have all these thoughts, and we just need to start.
What did we talk about this morning?
Yeah.
I'm like,
earlier, we're like, what are we talking about? But the fact is that it's so important to write these things out, to put them on paper, cast the vision, like you said. When you cast the vision and you continue to talk about it, I think the other thing too is right there, continue to talk about the vision, continue to talk about the why. The more you talk about the why, the better something will be. We've even mentioned with our marriage, the more that we've done this podcast, right? Like we've talked more during this season of our life than we ever have in our entire marriage. And now we're truly understanding, wow, communication really does make a huge difference. Because everything that we're talking about it in real time. Things we're going through, things that we've walked through. And so we're sitting here and we're realizing communication is literally the number one thing that's going to keep marriage strong and in a good place with each other, because the more you talk about it, the more you're in communication, the more in tune you're going to be with your spouse.
Well, I think too, like obviously we're talking about like building a business or these big dreams, but I think it's also important to care about what your spouse brings to you if they like have a goal, hey, I want to get healthy. Hey, I'm trying to do this or that, whatever it is. It's like, you want to be your husband or wife's biggest fan, biggest advocate, biggest cheerleader. Why are you shaking your head like that?
I'm agreeing with you and kind of laughing at the same time.
About what?
About me, because I'm always like,
okay,
babe,
but that's not what I'm talking about. What's funny is I say these.
I want to have a six pack.
That's not what I'm talking.
That's all I could think about when you're saying that just now.
What did I say? Either like earlier I said something about all work. All work and no play makes a dull boy or whatever.
Yeah, a dull boy.
And he goes, a dough boy? I'm like, someone's insecure. I did not call you a dough, D-O-U-G-H.
I heard her say a dough boy like for sure.
Someone's having their own little like...
I'm having a journey right now.
A journey with his... And I'm like...
You probably heard this before if you listen to our podcast. I'm always on this journey. Of getting a six pack that I've been trying to get for 15 years.
I just told him, like now you're going to be 40 in a couple of years, and it might just be time to.
It might be time to hang up the towel.
Okay, babe. Let's step up our game. And Julian goes, I just need to get in the game. I just need to get back in the game. But here's the thing.
Period.
Anyway, when your spouse brings you something, it doesn't always necessarily have to be this big business thing. Because you might be like, listen, I don't want to start a business. That is fair. That is so fair. If you're like, I don't want to start a business. I don't want to do anything. I like my job. I like what we're doing. That's amazing. And I love that. And I think that for some people, they find what they love and they do it forever. And I love that for you. That hasn't been our journey. Well, it was and is. I don't know. So let's not unpack that whole shenanigans. But it's a whole journey. My eye has been twitching forever. So if you want to tell me why my eye is twitching, I'm tired. I'm stressed. I don't know.
Doctors
I'm fine.
Out there.
It's fine.
What's wrong with your eye?
What's wrong with my eye?
Mine's starting to twitch now.
No, I know. Anyway, it could be that they bring you something like, hey, I want to eat healthy. Hey, I want to start doing this fitness. Hey, I'm going to start painting. I don't know, whatever it is. Oh, I mean, like, remember when I started on my reading journey of like, I'm going to listen to all these audiobooks.
Yeah.
I still do. That's what I do all the time. I was just listening to one and I would like lay in bed and fall asleep with a headphone in. And Julian's like, okay, cool. Like, babe, your book is still going. Oh, okay. Anyway,
or you would get in the car and the book would start reading to me.
The point is like when your spouse brings you something, like be an encourager, encourage them, like say, hey, that's awesome. Or, hey, I love that for you. Or, hey, you know, whatever it is, or, you know, that. And then, you know, obviously following big dreams is not for the faint of heart, you know,
for sure. You're going to have a lot of disappointment.
You're going to have, of course, but just Julian, if you want to talk about it a little bit and then we can tag team, like as you have been starting a business and we both are, you know, work from home and do multiple different things. Like, what does that look like as far as our marriage and some of the like roles that have had to, you know, like picking up different slack and different ebb and flow, and like, what would you say to that?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that you have to be aware of. And that's the whole communication piece. Like, you've got to be talking to each other. And so for me, like, when we're in busy season, so Christmas and Easter for us is very, very busy. We work with a lot of churches. We do graphic design and videos and websites. We're building websites and we're doing all that kind of stuff. So we know no matter what, coming up to Christmas, coming up to Easter,
it's going to get busier?
It's about to get busy. Yeah.
Jeez,
and
Louise,
we're already
y'all.
busy.
Just kidding.
But there's seasons that come, and then there's just times that just happen. Like, it just, everyone makes a request at the exact same time, and there's nothing I can do about it. Right. But it's important that I communicate to her as much as possible where I'm at and what's going on, because, for instance, if part of what I do in our house is take the trash out, and sometimes, every once in a while, hardly ever happens, I promise, I don't take the trash out before we go to bed at night. And that's kind of like one of our things. We take the trash out at night.
Every day.
That way when we wake up, everything's fresh and clean, right? And so,
if you haven't been around long enough,
there's been times where I didn't, and she's a little OCD, but there has been times where that didn't happen because I was so busy and I had to stay up till midnight to work. And take care of different things for our business especially in this beginning season as we're growing and trying to figure this thing out. And instead of Brittany getting super mad at me and frustrated with me, she just sees it in the morning, and she might be frustrated. She might be a little, those feelings might be inside of her, but she's not going to attack me. She knows what's going on in my life right now because of the way. I do
think that a couple weeks ago I got kind of mad about it.
You did get a little mad the other week.
Remember that?
But most of the time I don't hear about it. Like this morning you told me about it and I was like, I literally didn't even know that happened.
Oh, the no bag, yeah.
And
we were talking about that, yeah.
Yeah. And so she is naturally now, she's learned now, this has been time. This isn't like I married the perfect woman, right?
Sweet and a psycho. Yeah. Used to be.
100%.
A little more. A little bit less now.
A little bit more, a little bit less.
A little here. I just like to keep it spicy.
But because of what's going on in my life, she's going,
like, I know that you right now have a mental load that is bigger than normal.
Yes. And so.
But I wouldn't know that unless you communicate.
Exactly. And you could respond.
Although I can tell because you're living in your office.
You could respond and freak out and give me a hard time. Or you responded in a way that is gracious.
You're making me sound way nicer.
I'm giving you. Just take the credit, woman.
I mean, I just don't want people out there to think I'm too perfect.
You are what you are. Okay, but she could respond in that way. And I'm going to say this. She has responded that way.
There you go.
Okay? She has responded in a way where it wasn't gracious. It wasn't kind. It was frustrating. Ended up fighting about it.
But okay. Yeah.
But now, because of our communication where we're at, she does such a great job of just picking up the slack. And like yesterday, she was like, do you need me to go pick? I usually pick up the kids from school.
No, you pick up one kid.
One of our kids. She's a lot further away. So I have to go. I go pick her up because Brittany hates
this school year.
Yeah, Brittany hates driving. So I usually do the long drives. And yesterday was a perfect example. She goes, do you need me to go pick up Gabby? And I was like, yes, even this that would be amazing. And she goes, okay.
We've shifted some of that, like in the last 6 months or so.
That's this like business starting
because he's starting business, doing multiple things, and I do, but my work schedule is more flexible and less busy, and I can kind of pick things up and put them down when they need to be. And he just can't. Like I don't have the same deadlines as you have.
Deadlines,
I don't have deadlines. I put myself on deadlines, and but it's like I could get frustrated, like But you just pick up the slack. It's ebb and flow. And we've talked about that before. Like sometimes when I was studying for my real estate exam, like you had to pick up a ton of slack. Like I was like, I need to study. I need to do this or whatever it looks like.
In that season, I did a lot more. Yeah.
And so it's fun. It's seasons. It's ebb and flow. It's right now I need you to pick up more slack. Hey, right now I need you to pick up more, and not be bitter about it. And I think that's the issue is a lot of times we become bitter and then we're frustrated and then we lose sight of like that why, that vision.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how can we support each other and how does this work best for us? And we talked about like comparing, like when we talked about comparison, it's like this same thing. Like if you're comparing like, well, they do this or they do that. No, what works best for Brittany and Julian and
best for us.
Our marriage, and same for you guys out there. Like what works best for your marriage? Like what is going to work best? What's going to be the most fruitful? You know what I mean? And that might change from like week to week. Like there are days like that we sit down or, like the week before and it's like, hey, what does your schedule look like? Because I know that your schedule changes every week. My schedule may change every week. I'm putting it in the calendar and saying like, hey, this week I'm going to need you to pick up more slack. I'm going to need you to do pickups. I'm going to need you to do drop-offs. I'm going to need to pick up dinner and I'm not going to be able to make dinner every night. Like whatever that looks like to support your spouse's dreams. And remember that a lot of times it's a season because
for sure,
and keeping that in the forefront of your mind. And we've had this conversation, like to be totally transparent, like I'll go to him and be like, hey, I feel like right now, like you're super busy, like just to make sure we're on the same page, like this isn't what you plan on it being like forever, right? Or whatever it looks like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, and it's okay to have those guardrails too and say to your spouse, like, hey, we're not seeing you as often, or hey, like, and he's really good at boundaries and spending time with us. So it's not that, but it's just like making sure like, hey, let's come back to that vision, that purpose of, your business or this endeavor that you're on, and make sure we're still on the same page, because you're going to have to make adjustments all the time. And especially when you're shifting something, like starting a new job or starting a new business or ministry or shifting something, like you have to come back and make adjustments, tweaks, like, and I would say like you realizing, because when you first start a business, you may work on days you don't want to work, right? Like you're 100%. Like, I have to work on this day because this is the opportunity that's presented itself. But then I would say over the last few months, I've watched Julian be really adamant about like, hey, I don't work on these days. Like these are the days off. And this is why, because I have a wife and 2 kids, and I'm never going to sacrifice my family for my business. Like lose them or, making sure my priorities are still straight, and so it is a fine line though, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. 100%.
Like to make sure you're careful to not like.
Yeah. You have to, like you said, it's a fine line of trying to figure out the balance between following your dreams, making it happen,
right,
and maintaining the family and the life that you already have,
right?
Because really, it's kind of like having kids, right? You have 2 choices. You can have a kid and they can control your life, and everything in your life just drops, or you have a kid and the kid becomes a part of your life. And that's exactly what this exact same thing is. So right now, this is a situation where I'm putting on that front pack and we're going forward and we're going to just keep doing what we're doing. I remember when Brittany was a kids pastor and she was a kids pastor, and we brought a baby into this world, and she had a choice. She could have, either quit or moved on and just took care of the baby, or bring that baby into everything that she's doing. So I'm not even kidding, that baby was front packed every single day. She's running camps with hundreds of kids with a baby on her front pack, just going for it. So and funny. That's a perfect example of, and I'm still here going, do you need me to change your diaper? Do you need me to do something for you?
Yeah.
And even though it's our baby, but she needed to nurture the baby in so many ways that the baby needed her the most. Right.
Right.
And so just like a business, I have this business and I'm going to wear it like a front pack and it's going to be part of my life. But my wife's still here to go, what do you need me to do? Do you need me to change the diaper? Do you need me to do this? Do you need me to do that?
I try to be helpful.
Yeah.
I can only,
and she can be helpful in certain ways. And where she's helpful right now is picking up the kids. Sometimes she goes and picks up dog poop. Sometimes she takes out the trash. My least
favorite job.
Yeah, it's her least favorite job, but she'll do it because she knows that my life right now is crazy, and I'm just trying to find time to even think.
Well, I think it's important, as your spouse is pursuing a dream, I think here's a couple just practical things. Like, one, it's always so great to be on the same page so that you don't feel like you're getting left behind.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I love is as Julian has, launched this business, and him and his business partner, it's like we are included in that. We know what's going, I know what's going on, the other spouse knows as well. And we're able to support them and be there for them and encourage them. That way you don't feel left behind, because I think it's hard. Like when your spouse is following a dream, you're like, hello, like, do you remember me? But just bringing them along, but also checking those check-ins of how can I support you? That's the practical thing, is how can I support you today? And then not becoming bitter about things that do get dropped. I think that's the thing, is because things have gotten dropped a little more probably in this season than and here's the yes and no, because you're still doing incredible. So I say that, but the trash didn't go out a couple times. I think I'll survive. If that's the thing, but that example, really could be or I'll go into his office and there'll be an old cup and a popcorn bowl or something.
Or there was
today. It's just fresh in my mind. And instead of being oh my gosh, I just picked it up and took it downstairs and took care of it, you know? Because it's just right now. I'm I know it's temporary.
Yeah. And what we're building is worth it.
That's okay, because honestly, true. But I'm you do so much. It's I'm not stressing about it.
Yeah. Well,
but I would have before. And to be fair,
this is something that's been learned over time. Yeah. We've learned this over time. I mean, literally when we first got married, I'm the classic man who would leave his dirty clothes next to the dirty clothes basket. And this wasn't a big deal. It
was a big deal. I literally put a basket there for your underwear.
To me, I wasn't used to this life, and we were young. And the knockout, drag out fights we used to get in
were so dumb.
Over dumb things like that.
Underwear on the floor.
Were such a waste of time. And so we went through so much heartache and realized this just isn't worth it.
Right.
This is not worth fighting about when we are just trying to figure this out together. And I think that's the key right there too. This is new. This business is new. Everything that we're doing is new. So let's just figure this out together. Right. And when you separate yourself from your spouse and you try to figure it out on your own, and you do everything on your own, you don't need them.
Yeah.
That's when trouble happens. That's when disconnection happens. That's when miscommunication happens. That's when frustration comes in.
It's true.
You're going to build a wall. Yeah. And in order for that wall to never get built, just bring them along on the journey. Let them be a part of it. Even if they have no skill in what you're doing,
none, zero.
Let them be a part of what you're building and what you're doing.
I
mean, you're very good at Canva.
Video skills.
You've become a great Canva designer.
Well, I think too, and I had a good thought. Let's hope I can actually remember it, because that's a struggle. But bringing them along, yes, but also if you are the spouse that's the supporter, you're the one, like show genuine interest in what's going on without being controlling. You know what I mean? So I am a control freak. I mean, we know this if you've been around. Definitely recovering control freak, not as much as I used to be. But I will ask, like I ask him out of genuine, like, how's it going? Like, oh, who's that? And I'm not out of like, who is that? What are you doing?
For sure.
But out of, I want to show genuine interest for what he's doing. So when he has like a client call with like, whatever it is, I have no idea what it is. And he's like, it's an SEO. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, I mean, I know what it means, but I want to show genuine interest, so it's like show interest in their endeavor and like whatever it is they're doing. So even if it's, if your spouse is like, I say like, okay, deciding they want to go on a health journey of like losing weight or working out or whatever it is, like show interest in that. It doesn't mean you have to do it too. It doesn't mean I'm now a graphic designer or a marketer professional, whatever he does.
Whatever he does.
I know what he does, but it's a lot more than that. So it's, whatever. It just means I can show interest. And I'll say sometimes there never is. How can I help? Like, is there anything I can do to help you? There's not. And
like in my business?
I hold my breath. I'm like, please say no. Please say no. But just like out of genuine,
for sure,
I care.
For sure.
So I'm like, well, and we used to work together a lot more.
You want me to design something?
You want me to? No, I don't say that. But I do give you feedback.
You do. I do ask you, especially when designing for women. When I'm designing for women,
something's ugly.
Yeah. When I'm designing for women, you're the person to go to.
I'm like, hey, maybe change that or whatever.
Actually, the design I did just yesterday, I changed it completely because of something she said, and it worked out perfect.
But it was originally your idea.
Yeah, it started off as my idea, but she fixed it.
But I think that's the thing. And regardless of what it is, one, you want to support your spouse's dreams, whatever they look like, even if they come to you and they
make no
sounds
sense.
A little crazy and you're like, oh, okay. Have that conversation. 2, have that vision. Remember, this is why we're doing what we're doing. Whatever it looks like, build financial freedom, have time freedom. I mean, I think that's a big one. Be able to be with your kids, with your family. You have a dream that you've always wanted to follow or a mission or whatever it looks like. You know what I mean? Show genuine interest too. Wow, that's amazing. You'd be so great at that. Or wow, that totally makes sense for you. Whatever that looks like.
And
be their biggest cheerleader and pick up the slack. And I think that is so hard and can be, but then it's also fun to watch your spouse operate in things when you encourage them. You know what I mean? And know that you had a part in that. When you support your spouse, their success is your success because without you, they wouldn't be able to do it. What I mean?
Especially when you have kids.
Not that I'm taking credit, but I think it when you support your spouse and they're able to be successful, that their spouse is there cheering them on. When someone, most of the time, if you're doing something really successful, there's been a supportive spouse there too. You know what I mean? And I think that's a beautiful thing. And then you share in that together. I don't know if that even makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you back them up, you support them, you pick up the slack, you're the biggest cheerleader. Those are the things that are going to help them be the most successful in what they're trying to create. And so,
well, they'll have, because think about the deep moments of insecurity where you wanted to quit for both of us in different things, or, me deciding to pick up a dream that I did lay down for a long time. And then recently be like, no, I'm done not doing this. I'm going to do it. There's going to be moments where they have deep insecurity.
For sure.
Deep fear. And so it's you want to be able to say hey, no, you got it. Hey, keep going. And that's why I say
encouragement,
having that vision.
Yep.
I'm not saying you can go get a magazine and cut out all the little things, like a vision board.
Yeah, let's go.
But having that vision, write it on a piece of paper, put it on a whiteboard, have it in front of you so that when your spouse or you are gosh, why are we doing this again? You can come back and say, oh yeah, this is why we're doing it. Yeah. We're doing it for these reasons. This is the vision for our marriage, for our family, for our finances, whatever it looks like. And because if you lose sight of that, that's where you start to get frustrated and where you start to be like, is this worth it?
Yeah.
So and true. You have to be reminded that it is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we love that you guys are here today, that you've been listening to what we've been talking through when it comes to supporting your spouse and having vision with them, and doing everything that you can to support your spouse in their dreams and everything that they're doing. And so today, if your spouse has a dream, they have something that they're going through, that they're working through, they're like, man, I feel like this could be something so great.
Yeah.
Man, I would challenge you, if you have a bad attitude about it, just change your attitude today and just try to be an encourager, to be someone who's just going to support them in everything they do, and see what happens, not only to them, but what happens to you in your heart and when you switch your mentality around.
Yeah.
But if there's big dreams that you have, man, I would encourage you to go to your spouse and be like, hey, listen, I'm about to tell you something and you might think I'm crazy, but I'm hoping that you'll support me and love me through it. And then pitch your dream and then ask them. And then hopefully they'll say, well, how can I help you?
Yeah.
What can we do? Let's do this together, and bring them along on the journey, because when you're married, your dreams are their dreams, right? And so if I have a big dream, if I want to do something, she's coming alongside of me. It's vice versa. It's exactly the same way, the opposite. And so if you can do that today, figure out what that is for you, and go to your spouse and just begin to just conversate, just talk about it, put it out in front of you. If you both are on board, start putting vision, get a vision board together, talk about it as often as possible so that you can be successful.
Are you telling me we can make a vision board?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to buy magazines right now. And just one more thing before we wrap up. Just remember that most incredible dreams sound really scary in the beginning.
It's true.
And big dreams that end up in beautiful things don't always make sense right away. You know what I mean? So just remember that as you're approaching those dreams, that sometimes it's like, whoa, this feels like a lot. Like, I don't know if we could do this, you know, but
that's so true.
That's how they start.
That is exactly how they start. But thank you guys for joining us today on Young, Dumb, and in Love. Don't miss next week. Also, if you haven't joined our emailing list, we would love for you to be a part of that. We're getting ready to launch some really cool things when it comes to Young, Dumb, and in Love. We want to encourage you, empower you to have the best marriage today. So you can find that link just below, and we'll get you guys on that mailing list.
Bye for now.
Bye.